CLEP History Middle Ages. Question 1. Which answer best matches this CLEP History Middle Ages clue? Congress admitted California as free and strengthened the Fugitive Slave Act. Option A. Women's suffrage. Option B. Compromise of 1850. Option C. Italian unification. Option D. NATO. The correct answer is option B. Compromise of 1850. This points to Compromise of 1850 because the package tried to manage sectional conflict after the Mexican Cession. Women's suffrage points instead to women organized for voting rights and legal equality. Italian unification points instead to Piedmont, Garibaldi and nationalist politics helped create Italy, and NATO points instead to a military alliance linked the United States with Western Europe. Question 2. How would a CLEP history question most likely test this clue? A congressional faction demanded stronger Reconstruction protections for freed people. Option A. Persian Empire. Option B. Newton. Option C. Machiavelli. Option D. Radical Republicans. The correct answer is option D. Radical Republicans. This points to Radical Republicans because they pushed for civil rights and tighter terms for former Confederates. Persian Empire points instead to a large empire used satraps and roads to govern diverse peoples. Newton points instead to laws of motion and gravity unified celestial and earthly physics, and Machiavelli points instead to a Renaissance writer analyzed political power in The Prince. Question 3. Why does this clue matter for CLEP History Middle Ages? A mid-19th century war exposed Russian weakness and shifted European diplomacy. Option A. Sherman Antitrust Act. Option B. Crimean War. Option C. Justinian Code. Option D. Thesis Statement. The correct answer is option B. Crimean War. This points to Crimean War because the conflict affected the balance of power after Vienna. Sherman Antitrust Act points instead to Congress tried to curb monopolies and restraints of trade. Justinian Code points instead to Byzantine legal reform organized Roman law, and Thesis Statement points instead to a historical argument states a defensible claim about evidence. Question 4. When reviewing CLEP History Middle Ages, which answer fits this clue? Fear of radicals and communism led to raids and restrictions after World War I. Option A. Black Death. Option B. Red Scare. Option C. Erie Canal. Option D. Gettysburg. The correct answer is option B. Red Scare. This points to Red Scare because the panic reflected anxiety over revolution, labor unrest, and immigration. Black Death points instead to plague killed millions and disrupted Europe's economy and society. Erie Canal points instead to a canal connected the Great Lakes to the Hudson River and lowered transportation costs. And Gettysburg points instead to a Union victory marked a major turning point in the Civil War. Question 5. Where does this clue point in CLEP history content? Colonists justified separation by invoking natural rights and grievances against the king? Option A. Nationalism. Option B. Berlin Conference. Option C. Nullification crisis. Option D. Declaration of Independence. The correct answer is option D. Declaration of Independence. This points to Declaration of Independence because the document announced independence and explained the political reasons for it. Nationalism points instead to people emphasized shared language, culture, and political identity. Berlin Conference points instead to European powers set rules for colonizing Africa without African representation, and Nullification crisis points instead to South Carolina claimed it could reject federal tariffs. Question 6. Identify the answer connected to this CLEP History Middle Ages clue. The Bolshevik leader promoted vanguard revolution and withdrew Russia from World War I. Option A. Manifest Destiny. Option B. Progressive Era. Option C. Storming of the Bastille. Option D. Lenin. The correct answer is option D. Lenin. This points to Lenin because his leadership shaped early Soviet policy. Manifest Destiny points instead to many Americans believed the nation was destined to expand westward. Progressive Era points instead to reformers targeted corruption, monopolies, unsafe workplaces, and social injustice. And Storming of the Bastille points instead to a Paris crowd attacked a royal prison in 1789. Question 7. Choose the term that completes this history clue. A Paris crowd attacked a royal prison in 1789. Option A. Monroe Doctrine. Option B. John Brown's Raid. Option C. Storming of the Bastille. Option D. Steam engine. The correct answer is option C, storming of the Bastille. This points to storming of the Bastille because the event became a symbol of revolutionary action. Monroe Doctrine points instead to the United States warned European powers against new colonization in the Americas. John Brown's raid points instead to an abolitionist attack on Harper's Ferry frightened many Southerners, and steam engine points instead to improved power technology drove factories, railroads, and mines. Question 8. Select the best match for this CLEP-style clue. Allied leaders discussed post-war Europe near the end of World War II. Option A, Proclamation of 1763. Option B, Intolerable Acts. Option C, Yalta Conference. Option D, New Deal. The correct answer is option C, Yalta Conference. This points to Yalta Conference because the meeting shaped post-war divisions and Cold War tensions. Proclamation of 1763 points instead to Britain tried to limit colonial settlement west of the Appalachians. Intolerable Acts points instead to Britain punished Massachusetts after the Boston Tea Party, and New Deal points instead to Franklin Roosevelt's programs expanded federal relief, recovery, and reform. Question 9. Determine which answer explains this CLEP History Middle Ages clue. Byzantine disputes over religious images divided church and empire. Option A, Renaissance humanism. Option B, iconoclasm. Option C, common sense. Option D, Congress of Vienna. The correct answer is option B, iconoclasm. This points to iconoclasm because the controversy shows tensions over worship and authority. Renaissance humanism points instead to scholars emphasized classical learning and human achievement. Common sense points instead to Thomas Paine argued in plain language for independence from Britain, and Congress of Vienna points instead to European powers restored balance after Napoleon's defeat. Question 10. Recognize the event or idea behind this clue. A philosopher emphasized observation, logic, and classification. Option A, Aristotle. Option B, United Nations. Option C, Black Codes. Option D, Embargo Act. The correct answer is option A, Aristotle. This points to Aristotle because his writings influenced science, ethics, and politics for centuries. United Nations points instead to an international organization was created after World War II to promote peace and cooperation. Black Codes points instead to Southern laws restricted the freedom of formerly enslaved people, and Embargo Act points instead to Jefferson restricted foreign trade to pressure Britain and France. Question 11. Pinpoint the best answer for this history clue. Essays defended ratification of the Constitution and explained federal power. Option A, Sherman Antitrust Act. Option B, Spanish-American War. Option C, Wilmot Proviso. Option D, Federalist Papers. The correct answer is option D, Federalist Papers. This points to Federalist Papers because they argued that the new Constitution would control factions and protect Republican government. Sherman Antitrust Act points instead to Congress tried to curb monopolies and restraints of trade. Spanish-American War points instead to the United States defeated Spain and emerged with overseas territories, and Wilmot Proviso points instead to a proposal tried to ban slavery in lands gained from Mexico. Question 12. Spot the answer that matches this exam clue. Drought and soil erosion devastated Great Plains farmers during the Depression. Option A, 12 tables. Option B, Dust Bowl. Option C, Transcontinental Railroad. Option D, Aristotle. The correct answer is option B, Dust Bowl. This points to Dust Bowl because the disaster worsened rural suffering and migration. 12 tables points instead to Rome's written laws protected some legal rights for citizens. Transcontinental Railroad points instead to rail lines connected the country and accelerated Western settlement and commerce. And Aristotle points instead to a philosopher emphasized observation, logic, and classification. Question 13. Compare the options and choose the one tied to this clue. A religion grew within the Roman world and later became dominant in Europe. Option A, Diocletian. Option B, Russian Revolution. Option C, medieval universities. Option D, Christianity. The correct answer is option D, Christianity. This points to Christianity because its spread reshaped Roman and medieval society. Diocletian points instead to a Roman emperor divided administration to manage imperial crisis. Russian Revolution points instead to revolution ended Tsarist rule and brought Bolsheviks to power, and medieval universities points instead to schools developed around theology, law, medicine, and scholastic debate. Question 14. Connect this CLEP History Middle Ages clue to the right answer. An American victory persuaded France to ally with the United States. Option A, Saratoga. Option B, Byzantine Empire. Option C, militarism. Option D, monasteries. The correct answer is option A, Saratoga. This points to Saratoga because the battle became a diplomatic turning point in the revolution. Byzantine Empire points instead to the Eastern Roman Empire preserved Roman law and Greek culture. Militarism points instead to arms races and war planning contributed to tensions before World War I, and monasteries points instead to peasants' worked estates that formed the economic base of medieval society. Question 15. Trace this clue to the correct historical topic. Rome's written laws protected some legal rights for citizens. Option A, Social Security Act. Option B, Saratoga. Option C, 12 Tables. Option D, Great Depression. The correct answer is option C, 12 Tables. This points to 12 Tables because the laws were an early foundation of Roman legal tradition. Social Security Act points instead to the New Deal created pensions and unemployment insurance. Saratoga points instead to an American victory persuaded France to ally with the United States, and Great Depression points instead to a severe economic collapse caused mass unemployment and banking failures. Question 16. Explain which answer fits this CLEP history clue. Britain punished Massachusetts after the Boston Tea Party. Option A, chronology. Option B, European Union. Option C, Bolsheviks. Option D, intolerable acts. The correct answer is option D, intolerable acts. This points to intolerable acts because the laws pushed colonies toward greater unity against Britain. Chronology points instead to events are placed in correct time order. European Union points instead to European integration created shared institutions and a common market, and Bolsheviks points instead to radical Marxists seized power in Russia in 1917. Question 17. Interpret in CLEP History Middle Ages, which answer fits this clue. Tribal lands were divided into individual allotments to assimilate Native Americans. Option A, Hamilton's financial plan. Option B, iconoclasm. Option C, Munich Conference. Option D, Dawes Act. The correct answer is option D, Dawes Act. This points to Dawes Act because the policy reduced tribal land holdings and attacked communal ownership. Hamilton's financial plan points instead to the federal government assumed debts and supported a national bank. Iconoclasm points instead to Byzantine disputes over religious images divided church and empire, and Munich Conference points instead to European leaders allowed Hitler to take the Sudetenland in 1938. Question 18. Analyze this history clue and find the match. Congress tried to curb monopolies and restraints of trade. Option A, Gilded Age. Option B, Sherman Antitrust Act. Option C, Julius Caesar. Option D, abolitionism. The correct answer is option B, Sherman Antitrust Act. This points to Sherman Antitrust Act because the law became an early federal tool against trusts. Gilded Age points instead to rapid industrial growth to deep inequality and political corruption. Julius Caesar points instead to a Roman general's dictatorship helped end the Republic, and abolitionism points instead to reformers demanded the end of slavery through moral and political arguments. Question 19. Recall the answer linked to this clue. Citizenship and equal protection were written into the Constitution. Option A, Louisiana Purchase. Option B, McCarthyism. Option C, 14th Amendment. Option D, Roman Republic. The correct answer is option C, 14th Amendment. This points to 14th Amendment because the amendment became central to civil rights law. Louisiana Purchase points instead to Jefferson doubled the nation's territory through a purchase from France. McCarthyism points instead to accusations of communist influence damaged careers during the Second Red Scare, and Roman Republic points instead to Rome used elected offices, a senate, and checks among elites. Question 20. Name the event, idea, or policy described here. Macedonian conquest spread Greek culture across the eastern Mediterranean and Near East. Option A, Alexander the Great. Option B, Homestead Act. Option C, periodization. Option D, Articles of Confederation. The correct answer is option A, Alexander the Great. This points to Alexander the Great because his empire helped create the Hellenistic world. Homestead Act points instead to settlers received Western land after meeting residency and improvement requirements. Periodization points instead to history is divided into meaningful eras based on patterns and turning points, and articles of confederation points instead to the first national government had a weak central authority and no power to tax directly. Question 21. Match the CLEP History Middle Ages clue with the correct answer. Lincoln declared enslaved people free in areas still rebelling against the Union. Option A. Black Codes. Option B. Emancipation Proclamation. Option C. Yorktown. Option D. French and Indian War. The correct answer is option B. Emancipation Proclamation. This points to Emancipation Proclamation because it shifted the Civil War toward a war against slavery. Black Codes points instead to Southern laws restricted the freedom of formerly enslaved people. Yorktown points instead to Cornwallis surrendered after American and French forces trapped him, and French and Indian War points instead to Britain gained territory but created debt that led to new colonial taxes. Question 22. Distinguish the correct answer from similar history topics. Radical revolutionaries used executions to defend the French Republic. Option A. Gettysburg. Option B. Persian Empire. Option C. Reign of Terror. Option D. Yalta Conference. The correct answer is option C. Reign of Terror. This points to Reign of Terror because the period showed the revolution's violent radical phase. Gettysburg points instead to a Union victory marked a major turning point in the Civil War. Persian Empire points instead to a large empire used satraps and roads to govern diverse peoples, and Yalta Conference points instead to Allied leaders discussed post-war Europe near the end of World War II. Question 23. Locate the correct choice for this CLEP clue. Post-Napoleonic politics defended tradition, monarchy, and social order. Option A. French and Indian War. Option B. Conservatism. Option C. Prohibition. Option D. Secession. The correct answer is option B. Conservatism. This points to conservatism because conservatives sought stability after revolution and war. French and Indian War points instead to Britain gained territory but created debt that led to new colonial taxes. Prohibition points instead to the 18th Amendment banned the manufacture and sale of alcohol, and secession points instead to Southern states left the Union after Lincoln's election. Question 24. Review this clue and select the best answer. Allied forces landed in Normandy to begin liberating Western Europe. Option A. D-Day. Option B. Stalin. Option C. Emancipation Proclamation. Option D. Ancient Egypt. The correct answer is option A. D-Day. This points to D-Day because the invasion opened a major Western front against Nazi Germany. Stalin points instead to Soviet rule featured collectivization, 5-year plans, and political terror. Emancipation Proclamation points instead to Lincoln declared enslaved people free in areas still rebelling against the Union, and Ancient Egypt points instead to pharaohs, the Nile, and monumental architecture shaped a long-lasting civilization. Question 25. Decide which option this CLEP history clue describes. Revolution ended Tsarist rule and brought Bolsheviks to power. Option A. Stamp Act. Option B. Russian Revolution. Option C. Marshall Plan in Europe. Option D. Decolonization. The correct answer is option B. Russian Revolution. This points to Russian Revolution because the revolution created the first communist state. Stamp Act points instead to Parliament taxed printed materials and sparked colonial protests over representation. Marshall Plan in Europe points instead to U.S. aid rebuilt Western Europe and strengthened anti-communist governments, and decolonization points instead to colonies in Asia and Africa gained independence after World War II. Question 26. Evaluate the options and choose the one that fits. A French representative body met in 1789 during a fiscal crisis. Option A. Appeasement. Option B. Liberalism. Option C. Rousseau. Option D. Estates-General. The correct answer is option D. Estates-General. This points to Estates-General because its meeting helped launch the French Revolution. Appeasement points instead to Britain and France made concessions to Hitler hoping to avoid war. Liberalism points instead to political ideology emphasized rights, constitutionalism, and limited government, and Rousseau points instead to a thinker emphasized the general will and popular sovereignty. Question 27. Consider this clue and identify the historical match events are placed in correct time order. Option A, Gilded Age. Option B, Chronology. Option C, Monroe Doctrine. Option D, Hammurabi's Code. The correct answer is option B, Chronology. This points to chronology because chronology helps students recognize cause, sequence, and periodization. Gilded Age points instead to rapid industrial growth and deep inequality and political corruption. Monroe Doctrine points instead to the United States warned European powers against new colonization in the Americas, and Hammurabi's Code points instead to a Babylonian law code showed written legal rules and social hierarchy. Question 28. Predict in CLEP History Middle Ages, which answer fits this clue? Voting rights could not be denied based on race, color, or previous servitude. Option A, Voting Rights Act of 1965. Option B, Triangular Trade. Option C, 15th Amendment. Option D, Berlin Conference. The correct answer is option C, 15th Amendment. This points to 15th Amendment because the amendment aimed to protect black male suffrage during Reconstruction. Voting Rights Act of 1965 points instead to federal law attacked barriers such as literacy tests and voting. Triangular Trade points instead to Atlantic trade linked Europe, Africa, and the Americas through goods and enslaved labor. And Berlin Conference points instead to European powers set rules for colonizing Africa without African representation. Question 29. Notice the key clue and choose the matching answer. A federal agency assisted formerly enslaved people after the Civil War. Option A, English Civil War. Option B, Shays Rebellion. Option C, Dreyfus Affair. Option D, Freedmen's Bureau. The correct answer is option D, Freedmen's Bureau. This points to Freedmen's Bureau because it provided help with education, labor contracts, and basic needs. English Civil War points instead to conflict between king and parliament challenged royal absolutism. Shays Rebellion points instead to farmers' unrest exposed weaknesses in the Articles of Confederation, and Dreyfus Affair points instead to a French scandal over antisemitism and military injustice divided society. Question 30. Estimate which topic this clue would test. The 18th Amendment banned the manufacture and sale of alcohol. Option A, Transcontinental Railroad. Option B, Militarism. Option C, Revolutions of 1848. Option D, Prohibition. The correct answer is option D, Prohibition. This points to prohibition because the policy reflected progressive moral reform and created enforcement problems. Transcontinental Railroad points instead to rail lines connected the country and accelerated Western settlement and commerce. Militarism points instead to arms races and war planning contributed to tensions before World War I, and Revolutions of 1848 points instead to liberals and nationalists challenged conservative governments across Europe. Question 31. Judge which option best completes this clue. Nazi leadership promoted dictatorship, expansionism, and racial ideology. Option A, John Locke. Option B, Black Death. Option C, Crusades. Option D, Hitler. The correct answer is option D, Hitler. This points to Hitler because Hitler's rule led to World War II and the Holocaust. John Locke points instead to a philosopher argued for natural rights and government by consent. Black Death points instead to plague killed millions and disrupted Europe's economy and society, and Crusades points instead to European Christians launched military campaigns toward the Eastern Mediterranean. Question 32. Assess the clue and select the correct history term. Plague killed millions and disrupted Europe's economy and society. Option A, Black Death. Option B, Persian Empire. Option C, Louisiana Purchase. Option D, Shays Rebellion. The correct answer is option A, Black Death. This points to Black Death because the pandemic weakened labor systems and changed social relations. Persian Empire points instead to a large empire used satraps and roads to govern diverse peoples. Louisiana Purchase points instead to Jefferson doubled the nation's territory through a purchase from France, and Shays Rebellion points instead to farmers' unrest exposed weaknesses in the Articles of Confederation. Question 33. Classify this clue under the right historical answer. Congress outlawed segregation in public accommodations and employment discrimination. Option A, Estates minus General. Option B, Civil Rights Act of 1964. Option C, Secession. Option D, McCarthyism. The correct answer is option B, Civil Rights Act of 1964. This points to Civil Rights Act of 1964 because the law became a landmark federal civil rights measure. Estates minus general points instead to a French representative body met in 1789 during a fiscal crisis. Secession points instead to Southern states left the Union after Lincoln's election, and McCarthyism points instead to accusations of communist influence damaged careers during the Second Red Scare. Question 34. Infer in CLEP History Middle Ages, which answer fits this clue? US aid rebuilt Western Europe and strengthened anti-communist governments. Option A, Seneca Falls Convention. Option B, investiture controversy. Option C, Marshall Plan in Europe. Option D, point of view. The correct answer is option C, Marshall Plan in Europe. This points to Marshall Plan in Europe because the plan linked recovery with Cold War strategy. Seneca Falls Convention points instead to women's rights activists issued a declaration demanding equality. Investiture controversy points instead to popes and emperors fought over appointing bishops, and point of view points instead to a source reflects the author's position, interests, and audience. Question 35. Link this clue to the correct exam topic. The New Deal created pensions and unemployment insurance. Option A, Great Awakening. Option B, Hamilton's financial plan. Option C, secondary source. Option D, Social Security Act. The correct answer is option D, Social Security Act. This points to Social Security Act because the law built a lasting federal social safety net. Great Awakening points instead to religious revivals stressed personal conversion and challenged established authority. Hamilton's financial plan points instead to the federal government assumed debts and supported a national bank, and secondary source points instead to a later interpretation explains or analyzes past events. Question 36. Uncover the answer behind this history clue. A Roman emperor legalized Christianity and founded Constantinople. Option A, liberalism. Option B, Constantine. Option C, Yalta Conference. Option D, scholasticism. The correct answer is option B, Constantine. This points to Constantine because his policies changed the status of Christianity in the empire. Liberalism points instead to political ideology emphasized rights, constitutionalism, and limited government. Yalta Conference points instead to Allied leaders discussed post-war Europe near the end of World War II, and scholasticism points instead to medieval thinkers used reason to examine theology. Question 37. Test your recall by choosing the answer for this clue. The disputed 1876 election ended with federal troops leaving the South. Option A, Council of Trent. Option B, McCarthyism. Option C, John Locke. Option D, Compromise of 1877. The correct answer is option D, Compromise of 1877. This points to Compromise of 1877 because the compromise marked the end of Reconstruction. Council of Trent points instead to Catholic leaders clarified doctrine and Reformed church practices. McCarthyism points instead to accusations of communist influence damaged careers during the Second Red Scare, and John Locke points instead to a philosopher argued for natural rights and government by consent. Question 38. Practice this CLEP- style match. Western European states pooled coal and steel production after World War II. Option A, Indian Removal Act. Option B, Julius Caesar. Option C, Secession. Option D, European Coal and Steel Community. The correct answer is option D, European Coal and Steel Community. This points to European Coal and Steel Community because the organization helped begin European integration. Indian Removal Act points instead to federal policy forced many native peoples west of the Mississippi. Julius Caesar points instead to a Roman general's dictatorship helped end the Republic, and secession points instead to southern states left the Union after Lincoln's election. Question 39. Challenge yourself to identify this history clue. Colonists protested the Tea Act by destroying tea in Boston Harbor. Option A, Boston Tea Party. Option B, Treaty of Versailles. Option C, Erie Canal. Option D, Council of Trent. The correct answer is option A, Boston Tea Party. This points to Boston Tea Party because the protest led Britain to impose tougher measures on Massachusetts. Treaty of Versailles points instead to the peace settlement punished Germany and created the League of Nations. Erie Canal points instead to a canal connected the Great Lakes to the Hudson River and lowered transportation costs, and Council of Trent points instead to Catholic leaders clarified doctrine and Reformed church practices. Question 40. Confirm the correct answer for this clue. Enslaved people were counted partially for representation and taxation? Option A, Scopes trial. Option B, Reign of Terror. Option C, 3-5ths compromise. Option D, Second Great Awakening. The correct answer is option C, 3-5ths compromise. This points to 3-5ths compromise because the compromise showed slavery's influence on constitutional politics. Scopes trial points instead to a trial over teaching evolution highlighted conflict between modernism and fundamentalism. Reign of Terror points instead to radical revolutionaries used executions to defend the French Republic, and Second Great Awakening points instead to revivalism-inspired reform movements, such as abolition and temperance. Question 41. Verify which option matches this CLEP history clue. The 1970s saw high inflation combined with slow growth? Option A, stagflation. Option B, secession. Option C, Korean War. Option D, revolutions of 1848. The correct answer is option A, stagflation. This points to stagflation because the problem challenged Keynesian policy assumptions. Secession points instead to southern states left the Union after Lincoln's election. Korean War points instead to a Cold War conflict began when North Korea invaded South Korea, and revolutions of 1848 points instead to liberals and nationalists challenged conservative governments across Europe. Question 42. Solve this quick history clue. Women's rights activists issued a declaration demanding equality. Option A, Seneca Falls Convention. Option B, War of 1812. Option C, Crusades. Option D, Stalin. The correct answer is option A, Seneca Falls Convention. This points to Seneca Falls Convention because the 1848 meeting helped launch organized women's rights activism. War of 1812 points instead to conflict with Britain strengthened American nationalism despite mixed military results. Crusades points instead to European Christians launched military campaigns toward the eastern Mediterranean, and Stalin points instead to Soviet rule featured collectivization, 5-year plans, and political terror. Question 43. Figure out the correct answer from this clue. Resistance to a police raid helped energize the LGBTQ rights movement. Option A, Copernicus. Option B, Indian Removal Act. Option C, Stonewall Uprising. Option D, United Nations. The correct answer is option C, Stonewall Uprising. This points to Stonewall Uprising because the event became a symbol of modern gay rights activism. Copernicus points instead to a heliocentric model placed the sun at the center of the solar system. Indian Removal Act points instead to federal policy forced many native peoples west of the Mississippi, and United Nations points instead to an international organization was created after World War II to promote peace and cooperation. Question 44. Find the option that best fits this clue. A Renaissance writer helped revive classical Latin texts and humanism. Option A, conservatism. Option B, House of Burgesses. Option C, Petrarch. Option D, Harriet Beecher Stowe. The correct answer is option C, Petrarch. This points to Petrarch because he is often associated with early Renaissance humanism. Conservatism points instead to post-Napoleonic politics defended tradition, monarchy, and social order. House of Burgesses points instead to a Virginia assembly gave colonists an early model of representative government, and Harriet Beecher Stowe points instead to her novel Uncle Tom's Cabin increased northern anti-slavery feeling. Question 45. Remember which topic connects to this clue. Liberals and nationalists challenged conservative governments across Europe? Option A, revolutions of 1848. Option B, American system. Option C, Articles of Confederation. Option D, Korean War. The correct answer is option A, revolutions of 1848. This points to revolutions of 1848 because most revolutions failed but revealed deep social and political tensions. American system points instead to Clay promoted tariffs, a national bank, and internal improvements. Articles of Confederation points instead to the first national government had a weak central authority and no power to tax directly, and Korean War points instead to a Cold War conflict began when North Korea invaded South Korea. Question 46. Highlight in CLEP History Middle Ages, which answer fits this clue. A large empire used satraps and roads to govern diverse peoples. Option A, Montesquieu. Option B, Dust Bowl. Option C, end of the Cold War. Option D, Persian Empire. The correct answer is option D, Persian Empire. This points to Persian Empire because Persian administration helped manage a vast multi-ethnic empire. Montesquieu points instead to a philosopher advocated separation of powers. Dust Bowl points instead to drought and soil erosion devastated Great Plains farmers during the Depression, and end of the Cold War points instead to Soviet collapse ended the decades-long US-Soviet rivalry. Question 47. Separate the correct answer from close distractors. Britain tried to limit colonial settlement west of the Appalachians. Option A, iconoclasm. Option B, John Locke. Option C, Black Codes. Option D, Proclamation of 1763. The correct answer is option D, Proclamation of 1763. This points to Proclamation of 1763 because the policy angered colonists who wanted access to Western lands. Iconoclasm points instead to Byzantine disputes over religious images divided church and empire. John Locke points instead to a philosopher argued for natural rights and government by consent. And Black Codes points instead to Southern laws restricted the freedom of formerly enslaved people. Question 48. Clarify which history topic this clue describes. The Supreme Court denied black citizenship and rejected limits on slavery in territories. Option A, Dred Scott decision. Option B, Athenian democracy. Option C, Truman Doctrine. Option D, common sense. The correct answer is option A, Dred Scott decision. This points to Dred Scott decision because the decision inflamed sectional tensions before the Civil War. Athenian democracy points instead to citizens participated directly in political decision-making. Truman Doctrine points instead to the United States promised aid to resist communist expansion, and common sense points instead to Thomas Paine argued in plain language for independence from Britain. Question 49. Relate this clue to the correct CLEP history answer. Delegates created a stronger federal government with checks and balances. Option A, 3-5 Compromise. Option B, English Civil War. Option C, Japanese-American internment. Option D, Constitutional Convention. The correct answer is option D, Constitutional Convention. This points to Constitutional Convention because the meeting produced the U.S. Constitution in 1787. 3-5 Compromise points instead to enslaved people were counted partially for representation and taxation. English Civil War points instead to conflict between king and parliament challenged royal absolutism. And Japanese-American internment points instead to the U.S. government forcibly relocated Japanese Americans during World War II. Question 50. Detect the answer hidden in this clue. A later interpretation explains or analyzes past events. Option A, end of the Cold War. Option B, Constitutional Convention. Option C, secondary source. Option D, agricultural revolution. The correct answer is option C, secondary source. This points to secondary source because secondary sources synthesize evidence after the fact. End of the Cold War points instead to Soviet collapse ended the decades-long US-Soviet rivalry. Constitutional Convention points instead to delegates created a stronger federal government with checks and balances. And agricultural revolution points instead to improved farming increased food production before industrialization. Question 51. Differentiate the matching answer from other periods. Radical Marxists seized power in Russia in 1917. Option A, Scholasticism. Option B, Bolsheviks. Option C, 15th Amendment. Option D, Copernicus. The correct answer is option B, Bolsheviks. This points to Bolsheviks because they created a communist government under Lenin. Scholasticism points instead to medieval thinkers used reason to examine theology. 15th Amendment points instead to voting rights could not be denied based on race, color, or previous servitude, and Copernicus points instead to a heliocentric model placed the sun at the center of the solar system. Question 52. Carefully choose which option matches this clue. Tax cuts, deregulation, and supply-side ideas shaped 1980s economic policy. Option A, Reaganomics. Option B, Great Society. Option C, Stamp Act. Option D, Romanticism. The correct answer is option A, Reaganomics. This points to re-economics because the approach emphasized markets and reduced government intervention. Great Society points instead to Lyndon Johnson's programs targeted poverty, education, healthcare, and civil rights. Stamp Act points instead to Parliament taxed printed materials and sparked colonial protests over representation, and Romanticism points instead to artists and writers emphasized emotion, nature, and individual expression. Question 53. Question: which answer a CLEP item would expect Cherokee removal led to deadly forced migration westward? Option A, Calvinism. Option B, Trail of Tears. Option C, Dust Bowl. Option D, Jacksonian democracy. The correct answer is option B, Trail of Tears. This points to Trail of Tears because the event shows the human cost of Indian removal policy. Calvinism points instead to a Protestant movement emphasized predestination and disciplined communities. Dust Bowl points instead to drought and soil erosion devastated Great Plains farmers during the Depression, and Jacksonian democracy points instead to politics expanded white male suffrage and celebrated the common man. Question 54. Explore this clue and identify the correct answer. The first national government had a weak central authority and no power to tax directly. Option A, monorealism. Option B, steam engine. Option C, Proclamation of 1763. Option D, Articles of Confederation. The correct answer is option D, Articles of Confederation. This points to Articles of Confederation because its weaknesses helped lead to calls for a stronger constitution. Monorealism points instead to peasants' worked estates that formed the economic base of medieval society. Steam engine points instead to improved power technology drove factories, railroads, and mines, and Proclamation of 1763 points instead to Britain tried to limit colonial settlement west of the Appalachians. Question 55. Revisit this history clue and choose its match. Britain loosely enforced colonial rules before tightening control after 1763. Option A, salutary neglect. Option B, French Revolution. Option C, D-Day. Option D, Montesquieu. The correct answer is option A, salutary neglect. This points to salutary neglect because loose enforcement helped colonists develop habits of self-government. French Revolution points instead to old regime inequality and fiscal crisis helped spark radical political change. D-Day points instead to Allied forces landed in Normandy to begin liberating Western Europe, and Montesquieu points instead to a philosopher advocated separation of powers. Question 56. Discover which answer this CLEP clue describes. The English king broke with Rome and created the Church of England. Option A, Martin Luther. Option B, John Locke. Option C, Henry VIII. Option D, Cotton Gin. The correct answer is option C, Henry VIII. This points to Henry VIII because the break began the English Reformation. Martin Luther points instead to a monk-challenged indulgences and helped launch the Protestant Reformation. John Locke points instead to a philosopher argued for natural rights and government by consent, and Cotton Gin points instead to Eli Whitney's machine made cotton processing faster and expanded slavery's profitability. Question 57. Investigate the correct choice for this clue. Congress balanced free and slave states while drawing a slavery line in the Louisiana Territory. Option A, primary source. Option B, Missouri Compromise. Option C, muckrakers. Option D, Jane Addams. The correct answer is option B, Missouri Compromise. This points to Missouri Compromise because the compromise temporarily managed sectional conflict over slavery. Primary source points instead to a document or artifact comes from the time being studied. Muckrakers points instead to journalists, exposed corporate abuse, corruption, and urban problems, and Jane Addams points instead to a reformer founded Hull House to assist immigrants and the urban poor. Question 58. Read the clue and select the matching topic. Artists and writers emphasized emotion, nature, and individual expression. Option A, McCarthyism. Option B, Romanticism. Option C, Scientific Revolution. Option D, Jamestown. The correct answer is option B, Romanticism. This points to Romanticism because the movement reacted against strict rationalism and industrial society. McCarthyism points instead to accusations of communist influence damaged careers during the Second Red Scare. Scientific Revolution points instead to thinkers used observation and mathematics to challenge older views of nature. and Jamestown points instead to England's first permanent settlement survived through tobacco and difficult early conditions. Question 59. Complete the exam minus style clue with the correct answer. European powers restored balance after Napoleon's defeat. Option A, Dred Scott decision. Option B, Julius Caesar. Option C, economic interpretation. Option D, Congress of Vienna. The correct answer is option D, Congress of Vienna. This points to Congress of Vienna because the settlement tried to prevent another continent-wide war. Dred Scott decision points instead to the Supreme Court denied black citizenship and rejected limits on slavery in territories. Julius Caesar points instead to a Roman general's dictatorship helped end the Republic, and economic interpretation points instead to historical change is explained through production, trade, labor and wealth. Question 60. Decode in CLEP History Middle Ages, which answer fits this clue? Laws of motion and gravity unified celestial and earthly physics? Option A, conservatism. Option B, Seneca Falls Convention. Option C, Newton. Option D, radical republicans. The correct answer is option C, Newton. This points to Newton because his work became a foundation of modern science. Conservatism points instead to post-Napoleonic politics defended tradition, monarchy, and social order. Seneca Falls Convention points instead to women's rights activists issued a declaration demanding equality, and radical Republicans points instead to a congressional faction demanded stronger Reconstruction protections for freed people. Question 61. Rapidly identify the best answer for this clue. Improved farming increased food production before industrialization? Option A, agricultural revolution. Option B, compromise of 1850. Option C, 30 Years' War. Option D, Greek polis. The correct answer is option A, agricultural revolution. This points to agricultural revolution because higher productivity supported population growth and urban labor. Compromise of 1850 points instead to Congress admitted California as free and strengthened the Fugitive Slave Act. 30 Years' War points instead to a destructive European war, mixed religious and political conflict, and Greek polis points instead to city-states such as Athens and Sparta shaped Greek political life. Question 62. Wisely choose which response matches this clue. African American writers, artists, and musicians flourished in the 1920s? Option A, Second Great Awakening. Option B, Weimar Republic. Option C, Harlem Renaissance. Option D, Saratoga. The correct answer is option C, Harlem Renaissance. This points to Harlem Renaissance because the movement celebrated black culture and creativity. Second Great Awakening points instead to revivalism-inspired reform movements such as abolition and temperance. Weimar Republic points instead to Germany's post-World War I democracy faced inflation, extremism, and legitimacy problems, and Saratoga points instead to an American victory persuaded France to ally with the United States. Question 63. Rank the choices by relevance and pick the best match. Rome defeated Carthage and gained dominance in the Western Mediterranean? Option A, Martin Luther. Option B, 12 Tables. Option C, Dred Scott decision. Option D, Punic Wars. The correct answer is option D, Punic Wars. This points to Punic Wars because the wars helped transform Rome into a major empire. Martin Luther points instead to a monk-challenged indulgences and helped launch the Protestant Reformation. 12 Tables points instead to Rome's written laws protected some legal rights for citizens, and Dred Scott decision points instead to the Supreme Court denied black citizenship and rejected limits on slavery in territories. Question 64. Prioritize the clue and select the correct history answer. Religious revivals stressed personal conversion and challenged established authority. Option A, Great Society. Option B, Japanese American internment. Option C, Great Awakening. Option D, Jane Addams. The correct answer is option C, Great Awakening. This points to Great Awakening because the revivals shaped colonial religion and encouraged more individual religious choice. Great Society points instead to Lyndon Johnson's programs targeted poverty, education, healthcare, and civil rights. Japanese American internment points instead to the U.S. government forcibly relocated Japanese Americans during World War II, and Jane Addams points instead to a reformer-founded Hull House to assist immigrants and the urban poor. Question 65. Focus on the clue and pick the correct option. Veterans received education and housing benefits after World War II. Option A, Stalin. Option B, Boston Tea Party. Option C, chronology. Option D, GI Bill. The correct answer is option D, GI Bill. This points to GI Bill because the law helped expand the middle class. Stalin points instead to Soviet rule featured collectivization, 5-year plans, and political terror. Boston Tea Party points instead to colonists protested the Tea Act by destroying tea in Boston Harbor, and chronology points instead to events are placed in correct time order. Question 66. Use this clue to identify the tested topic. England's first permanent settlement survived through tobacco and difficult early conditions. Option A, Columbian Exchange. Option B, Jamestown. Option C, Mussolini. Option D, Martin Luther. The correct answer is option B, Jamestown. This points to Jamestown because Jamestown became the first permanent English colony in North America. Columbian Exchange points instead to new foods, animals, diseases, and peoples moved between the Eastern and Western hemispheres. Mussolini points instead to Italy's fascist leader built a dictatorship after World War I, and Martin Luther points instead to a monk challenged indulgences and helped launch the Protestant Reformation. Question 67. Apply in CLEP History Middle Ages, which answer fits this clue? The Supreme Court established judicial review. Option A, Marbury v. Madison. Option B, triangular trade. Option C, Alexander the Great. Option D, Napoleon Bonaparte. The correct answer is option A, Marbury v. Madison. This points to Marbury v. Madison because the case confirmed the court's power to declare laws unconstitutional. Triangular trade points instead to Atlantic trade linked Europe, Africa, and the Americas through goods and enslaved labor. Alexander the Great points instead to Macedonian conquest spread Greek culture across the eastern Mediterranean and Near East, and Napoleon Bonaparte points instead to a military leader spread French reforms while building an empire. Question 68. Between the clues, which answer fits this topic? Farmers demanded reforms such as free silver, railroad regulation, and direct democracy. Option A, Compromise of 1850. Option B, Spanish-American War. Option C, Populist movement. Option D, Chinese Exclusion Act. The correct answer is option C, Populist movement. This points to populist movement because the movement reflected rural anger over debt, prices, and corporate power. Compromise of 1850 points instead to Congress admitted California as free and strengthened the Fugitive Slave Act. Spanish-American War points instead to the United States defeated Spain and emerged with overseas territories, and Chinese Exclusion Act points instead to federal law restricted immigration from China in 1882. Question 69. Promptly in CLEP History Middle Ages, which answer fits this clue? A Roman general's dictatorship helped end the Republic? Option A, Weimar Republic. Option B, Lenin. Option C, 15th Amendment. Option D, Julius Caesar. The correct answer is option D, Julius Caesar. This points to Julius Caesar because his rise exposed the Republic's political crisis. Weimar Republic points instead to Germany's post-World War I democracy faced inflation, extremism, and legitimacy problems. Lenin points instead to the Bolshevik leader promoted vanguard revolution and withdrew Russia from World War I, and 15th Amendment points instead to voting rights could not be denied based on race, color, or previous servitude. Question 70. Smartly select the best historical match. Rail lines connected the country and accelerated Western settlement and commerce. Option A, Louisiana Purchase. Option B, Homestead Act. Option C, Transcontinental Railroad. Option D, Point of View. The correct answer is option C, Transcontinental Railroad. This points to Transcontinental Railroad because the railroad transformed travel, trade, and the Western economy. Louisiana Purchase points instead to Jefferson doubled the nation's territory through a purchase from France. Homestead Act points instead to settlers received Western land after meeting residency and improvement requirements, and Point of View points instead to a source reflects the author's position, interests, and audience. Question 71. Swiftly in CLEP History Middle Ages, which answer fits this clue? Atlantic trade linked Europe, Africa, and the Americas through goods and enslaved labor. Option A, Galileo. Option B, revolutions of 1848. Option C, triangular trade. Option D, House of Burgesses. The correct answer is option C, triangular trade. This points to triangular trade because the system shows the economic connections of the colonial Atlantic world. Galileo points instead to observations with a telescope-supported heliocentrism and challenged church-backed views. Revolutions of 1848 points instead to liberals and nationalists challenged conservative governments across Europe, and House of Burgesses points instead to a Virginia assembly gave colonists an early model of representative government. Question 72. Diligently in CLEP History Middle Ages, which answer fits this clue? Belief in one God distinguished ancient Hebrew religion. Option A, United Nations. Option B, Scopes Trial. Option C, Hebrew monotheism. Option D, Magna Carta. The correct answer is option C, Hebrew monotheism. This points to Hebrew monotheism because monotheism became a major influence on later Western religious traditions. United Nations points instead to an international organization was created after World War II to promote peace and cooperation. Scopes Trial points instead to a trial over teaching evolution highlighted conflict between modernism and fundamentalism, and Magna Carta points instead to English nobles forced limits on royal power in 1215. Question 73. Immediately decide which option the clue describes the peace settlement punished Germany and created the League of Nations. Option A, Treaty of Versailles. Option B, Constantine. Option C, Compromise of 1850. Option D, Fall of the Berlin Wall. The correct answer is option A, Treaty of Versailles. This points to Treaty of Versailles because the treaty shaped post-war tensions despite U.S. refusal to join the League. Constantine points instead to a Roman emperor legalized Christianity and founded Constantinople. Compromise of 1850 points instead to Congress admitted California as free and strengthened the Fugitive Slave Act, and Fall of the Berlin Wall points instead to East Germans opened the barrier dividing Berlin in 1989. Question 74. Narrow the choices to the answer matching this clue. A nuclear standoff brought the United States and Soviet Union close to war. Option A, Spanish Armada. Option B, Russian Revolution. Option C, Bacon's Rebellion. Option D, Cuban Missile Crisis. The correct answer is option D, Cuban Missile Crisis. This points to Cuban Missile Crisis because the crisis became a major Cold War confrontation. Spanish Armada points instead to Spain's failed invasion of England weakened Spanish prestige. Russian Revolution points instead to revolution ended Tsarist rule and brought Bolsheviks to power, and Bacon's Rebellion points instead to frontier unrest in Virginia exposed tensions over land, class, and colonial leadership. Question 75. Eliminate distractors and choose the matching answer. A historical argument states a defensible claim about evidence. Option A, Hitler. Option B, Montgomery bus boycott. Option C, Sherman Antitrust Act. Option D, thesis statement. The correct answer is option D, thesis statement. This points to thesis statement because a thesis guides interpretation rather than merely listing facts. Hitler points instead to Nazi leadership promoted dictatorship, expansionism, and racial ideology. Montgomery bus boycott points instead to African Americans protested segregated buses after Rosa Parks' arrest, and Sherman Antitrust Act points instead to Congress tried to curb monopolies and restraints of trade. Question 76. Again, which option fits after reading this CLEP-style clue? Journalists exposed corporate abuse, corruption, and urban problems. Option A, muckrakers. Option B, Roe v. Wade. Option C, Fall of the Berlin Wall. Option D, Augustus. The correct answer is option A, muckrakers. This points to muckrakers because their reporting helped build support for progressive reforms. Roe v. Wade points instead to the Supreme Court recognized a constitutional right to abortion in 1973. Fall of the Berlin Wall points instead to East Germans opened the barrier dividing Berlin in 1989, and Augustus points instead to Rome's first emperor created the Principate and launched the Pax Romana. Question 77. Think in CLEP History Middle Ages, which answer fits this clue? Historians explain how one development helped produce another. Option A, nullification crisis. Option B, Roman Republic. Option C, causation. Option D, common sense. The correct answer is option C, causation. This points to causation because causation connects events rather than just listing dates. Nullification crisis points instead to South Carolina claimed it could reject federal tariffs. Roman Republic points instead to Rome used elected offices, a senate, and checks among elites, and common sense points instead to Thomas Paine argued in plain language for independence from Britain. Question 78. Quickly analyze which history answer fits. European integration created shared institutions and a common market. Option A, Dawes Act. Option B, European Union. Option C, Transcontinental Railroad. Option D, Augustus. The correct answer is option B, European Union. This points to European Union because the EU grew from post-war cooperation. Dawes Act points instead to tribal lands were divided into individual allotments to assimilate Native Americans. Transcontinental Railroad points instead to rail lines connected the country and accelerated Western settlement and commerce. And Augustus points instead to Rome's first emperor created the Principate and launched the Pax Romana. Question 79. Inspect a clue and select the correct option. An abolitionist attack on Harper's Ferry frightened many Southerners. Option A, John Brown's Raid. Option B, Missouri Compromise. Option C, Alien and Sedition Acts. Option D, End of the Cold War. The correct answer is option A, John Brown's Raid. This points to John Brown's raid because the raid increased sectional fear before the Civil War. Missouri Compromise points instead to Congress balanced free and slave states while drawing a slavery line in the Louisiana Territory. Alien and Sedition Acts points instead to Federalists restricted criticism and immigration during conflict with France. And End of the Cold War points instead to Soviet collapse ended the decades-long US-Soviet rivalry. Question 80. Study this clue and choose the matching history term. Conflict with Britain strengthened American nationalism despite mixed military results. Option A, John Locke. Option B, Crimean War. Option C, Whiskey Rebellion. Option D, War of 1812. The correct answer is option D, War of 1812. This points to War of 1812 because the war reinforced national pride and highlighted trade and maritime issues. John Locke points instead to a philosopher argued for natural rights and government by consent. Crimean War points instead to a mid-19th century war exposed Russian weakness and shifted European diplomacy. And Whiskey Rebellion points instead to Washington used federal power to enforce an excise tax. Question 81. Master this CLEP clue by selecting the answers. Southern states left the Union after Lincoln's election. Option A, storming of the Bastille. Option B, secession. Option C, Montesquieu. Option D, scholasticism. The correct answer is option B, secession. This points to secession because secession led directly to the Civil War. Storming of the Bastille points instead to a Paris crowd attacked a royal prison in 1789. Montesquieu points instead to a philosopher advocated separation of powers. And scholasticism points instead to medieval thinkers used reason to examine theology. Question 82. Drill this history clue and pick the best match. Arms races and war planning contributed to tensions before World War I. Option A, Athenian democracy. Option B, Augustus. Option C, militarism. Option D, fascism. The correct answer is option C, militarism. This points to militarism because militarism was one cause of pre-war instability. Athenian democracy points instead to citizens participated directly in political decision-making. Augustus points instead to Rome's first emperor created the Principate and launched the Pax Romana. And fascism points instead to authoritarian nationalism rejected liberal democracy and communism. Question 83. Speedily review and select the answer tied to this clue. A Roman emperor divided administration to manage imperial crisis. Option A, medieval universities. Option B, Diocletian. Option C, Stamp Act. Option D, Dred Scott decision. The correct answer is option B, Diocletian. This points to Diocletian because his reforms tried to stabilize the empire. Medieval universities points instead to schools developed around theology, law, medicine, and scholastic debate. Stamp Act points instead to Parliament taxed printed materials and sparked colonial protests over representation. And Dred Scott decision points instead to the Supreme Court denied black citizenship and rejected limits on slavery in territories. Question 84. Check which option fits this exam clue. US escalation caused major protest and debate over containment. Option A, American system. Option B, Persian Empire. Option C, Mexican-American War. Option D, Vietnam War. The correct answer is option D, Vietnam War. This points to Vietnam War because the conflict deeply divided American society. American system points instead to Clay promoted tariffs, a national bank, and internal improvements. Persian Empire points instead to a large empire used satraps and roads to govern diverse peoples, and Mexican-American War points instead to U.S. victory added Western lands and reignited debate over slavery's expansion. Question 85. Examine this clue and choose the correct answer. Improved power technology drove factories, railroads, and mines. Option A, NATO. Option B, steam engine. Option C, Russian Revolution. Option D, Jane Addams. The correct answer is option B, steam engine. This points to steam engine because steam power accelerated industrial growth. NATO points instead to a military alliance linked the United States with Western Europe. Russian Revolution points instead to revolution ended Tsarist rule and brought Bolsheviks to power, and Jane Addams points instead to a reformer-founded Hull House to assist immigrants and the urban poor. Question 86. Closely compare the choices and identify the correct match. Piedmont, Garibaldi, and nationalist politics helped create Italy. Option A, Watergate. Option B, Compromise of 1850. Option C, Common Sense. Option D, Italian unification. The correct answer is option D, Italian unification. This points to Italian unification because unification changed the European balance of power. Watergate points instead to a political scandal led to President Nixon's resignation. Compromise of 1850 points instead to Congress admitted California as free and strengthened the Fugitive Slave Act, and Common Sense points instead to Thomas Paine argued in plain language for independence from Britain. Question 87. Reason through this clue and choose the answer. The United States warned European powers against new colonization in the Americas. Option A, salutary neglect. Option B, John Brown's raid. Option C, Monroe Doctrine. Option D, conservatism. The correct answer is option C, Monroe Doctrine. This points to Monroe Doctrine because the doctrine asserted a U.S. role in the Western Hemisphere. Salutary neglect points instead to Britain loosely enforced colonial rules before tightening control after 1763. John Brown's raid points instead to an abolitionist attack on Harper's Ferry frightened many Southerners, and conservatism points instead to post-Napoleonic politics defended tradition, monarchy, and social order. Question 88. Sort in CLEP History Middle Ages, which answer fits this clue. Rome used elected offices, a senate, and checks among elites. Option A, secondary source. Option B, Aristotle. Option C, Bill of Rights. Option D, Roman Republic. The correct answer is option D, Roman Republic. This points to Roman Republic because the Republic influenced later ideas of mixed government. Secondary source points instead to a later interpretation explains or analyzes past events. Aristotle points instead to a philosopher emphasized observation, logic, and classification, and Bill of Rights points instead to the first 10 amendments protected individual liberties against federal abuse. Question 89. Precisely identify which answer belongs with this clue. Catholic leaders clarified doctrine and reformed church practices. Option A, Enlightenment. Option B, Agricultural Revolution. Option C, Council of Trent. Option D, French and Indian War. The correct answer is option C, Council of Trent. This points to Council of Trent because the council was central to the Catholic Reformation. Enlightenment points instead to thinkers emphasized reason, natural rights, and criticism of tradition. Agricultural Revolution points instead to improved farming, increased food production before industrialization, and French and Indian War points instead to Britain gained territory but created debt that led to new colonial taxes. Question 90. Assuredly select the answer that matches this clue. Rapid industrial growth hid deep inequality and political corruption. Option A, Fascism. Option B, Gilded Age. Option C, Magna Carta. Option D, United Nations. The correct answer is option B, Gilded Age. This points to Gilded Age because the term describes late 19th-century prosperity mixed with serious social problems. Fascism points instead to authoritarian nationalism, rejected liberal democracy and communism. Magna Carta points instead to English nobles' forced limits on royal power in 1215, and United Nations points instead to an international organization was created after World War II to promote peace and cooperation. Question 91. Mark in CLEP History Middle Ages, which answer fits this clue? Industrial jobs drew people into rapidly growing cities. Option A, decolonization. Option B, urbanization. Option C, Alien and Sedition Acts. Option D, Progressive Era. The correct answer is option B, urbanization. This points to urbanization because city growth created new social problems and opportunities. Decolonization points instead to colonies in Asia and Africa gained independence after World War II. Alien and Sedition Acts points instead to Federalists restricted criticism and immigration during conflict with France, and Progressive Era points instead to reformers targeted corruption, monopolies, unsafe workplaces, and social injustice. Question 92. Pick the option that completes this history clue. A philosopher advocated separation of powers. Option A, Montesquieu. Option B, Lenin. Option C, Agricultural Revolution. Option D, Whiskey Rebellion. The correct answer is option A, Montesquieu. This points to Montesquieu because his ideas influenced constitutional design. Lenin points instead to the Bolshevik leader promoted vanguard revolution and withdrew Russia from World War I. Agricultural Revolution points instead to improved farming, increased food production before industrialization, and Whiskey Rebellion points instead to Washington used federal power to enforce an excise tax. Question 93. Look for the answer that fits this clue. Federal law restricted immigration from China in 1882. Option A, Great Awakening. Option B, Appeasement. Option C, Machiavelli. Option D, Chinese Exclusion Act. The correct answer is option D, Chinese Exclusion Act. This points to Chinese Exclusion Act because the act reflected nativism and racial exclusion. Great Awakening points instead to religious revivals, stressed personal conversion and challenged established authority. Appeasement points instead to Britain and France made concessions to Hitler hoping to avoid war, and Machiavelli points instead to a Renaissance writer analyzed political power in The Prince. Question 94. Attentively study this clue and choose the correct match. Politics expanded white male suffrage and celebrated the common man. Option A, Constitutional Convention. Option B, Socialism. Option C, 12 Tables. Option D, Jacksonian Democracy. The correct answer is option D, Jacksonian Democracy. This points to Jacksonian democracy because the era broadened participation for many white men while excluding women and most black Americans. Constitutional Convention points instead to delegates created a stronger federal government with checks and balances. Socialism points instead to critics of capitalism called for social ownership or stronger protections for workers. And 12 Tables points instead to Rome's written laws protected some legal rights for citizens. Question 95. Instantly think through and identify the CLEP history answer. The United States defeated Spain and emerged with overseas territories. Option A, Hammurabi's Code. Option B, Spanish-American War. Option C, 13th Amendment. Option D, Persian Empire. The correct answer is option B, Spanish-American War. This points to Spanish-American War because the war marked a shift toward American imperial power. Hammurabi's Code points instead to a Babylonian law code showed written legal rules and social hierarchy. 13th Amendment points instead to slavery was abolished throughout the United States, and Persian Empire points instead to a large empire used satraps and roads to govern diverse peoples. Question 96. Recheck the clue and select the correct answer. Rome's first emperor created the Principate and launched the Pax Romana. Option A, 3-5 Compromise. Option B, Freedmen's Bureau. Option C, Augustus. Option D, Printing Press. The correct answer is option C, Augustus. This points to Augustus because his rule began the Roman Empire's long period of stability. 3-5 Compromise points instead to enslaved people were counted partially for representation and taxation. Freedmen's Bureau points instead to a federal agency assisted formerly enslaved people after the Civil War, and printing press points instead to movable type spread books and ideas more quickly. Question 97. Try this quick CLEP history clue. A Protestant movement emphasized predestination and disciplined communities. Option A, Calvinism. Option B, Munich Conference. Option C, Renaissance humanism. Option D, Constantine. The correct answer is option A, Calvinism. This points to Calvinism because Calvin's ideas influenced reform movements across Europe. Munich Conference points instead to European leaders allowed Hitler to take the Sudetenland in 1938. Renaissance humanism points instead to scholars emphasized classical learning and human achievement, and Constantine points instead to a Roman emperor legalized Christianity and founded Constantinople. Question 98. Answer this history clue with the best option. The Supreme Court declared segregated public schools unconstitutional. Option A, Brown v. Board of Education. Option B, Korean War. Option C, secondary source. Option D, French and Indian War. The correct answer is option A, Brown v. Board of Education. This points to Brown v. Board of Education because the decision challenged the legal foundation of Jim Crow segregation. Korean War points instead to a Cold War conflict began when North Korea invaded South Korea. Secondary source points instead to a later interpretation explains or analyzes past events, and French and Indian War points instead to Britain gained territory but created debt that led to new colonial taxes. Question 99. Resolve which answer this clue is testing. Byzantine legal reform organized Roman law. Option A, Romanticism. Option B, World War I. Option C, Petrarch. Option D, Justinian Code. The correct answer is option D, Justinian Code. This points to Justinian Code because the code influenced later European legal systems. Romanticism points instead to artists and writers emphasized emotion, nature, and individual expression. World War I points instead to U.S. entry helped the Allies and increased federal power at home, and Petrarch points instead to a Renaissance writer helped revive classical Latin texts and humanism. Question 100. Unlock the correct response to this clue. Franklin Roosevelt's programs expanded federal relief, recovery, and reform. Option A, New Deal. Option B, investiture controversy. Option C, World War I alliances. Option D, conservatism. The correct answer is option A, New Deal. This points to New Deal because the New Deal redefined the role of the federal government in the economy. Investiture controversy points instead to popes and emperors fought over appointing bishops. World War I alliances points instead to entangling alliances turned a regional crisis into a wider war, and conservatism points instead to post-Napoleonic politics defended tradition, monarchy, and social order.